Welcome into Nitro Nation tonight. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to go through points. I had a question from Dom last week. Hey, how do you get points in an NHRA? It's confusing as can be, I'll tell you that. There's two different point scales, if you will, depending on what national event that you're at. So let's dive right into it because there is a lot to talk about. Where are we at right here? Yes. So NHRA standard points system for the pro categories. Now this is a standard national event. There is no special anything going on. This is a standard national event. We're gonna get into it in just a little bit. There's different point scales if you're at the finals of U.S. National. So we'll get into that. But standard NHRA national event. Winner, you are going to get 120 points, and then each round is worth 20 points from there. If you show up and you don't qualify, you're still going to get 10 points. So growing up, my dad never called it the first round loser. It was always the first round runner up. So if you're the first round runner up, you're going to get 40 points, and then 20 points up from there all the way up to 120 if you're the event winner. Now, here's where it gets fun. Qualifying, bonus points. You're going to get bonus points for qualifying. Number one qualifier is going to get 8 points, all the way down to 1 point for the number 8 qualifier. Now, don't forget, we qualify 16 cars, but we're not worried about the lower half of the field. The upper half is what gets the point. So 1 through 8, 8th through 1st is what that point is. And then you get into, what's a session bonus? So this is per qualifying round, okay? If you are the quickest, you're going to get 4.5 points. Second's going to get 3. Third is going to get 1.5. Now, that is per qualifying round. So the fastest of the session in round 1, fastest of the session in round 2, fastest of the session in round 3, fastest of the session in round 4. So you could, depending on if you're, top, if you're the quickest, second or third, you're going to get some bonus points in qualifying, which is phenomenal. And then, let me go to the next one. I'll come back to that one. All right, so maximum points at a standard NHRA national event. Qualified number 1, you're going to get 8. You're going to get 8 points. If you win the race, you're going to get 120 points. We discovered that. Quickest in all 4 sessions. 4 points times, 3 points times 4. I had the wrong graphic up there. My apologies. I will get back to this here. I had the wrong graphic up. Let me see if I can find that. Okay. Well, sorry. It's 3 points for the fastest in standard. I have the 1.5 scale up there. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Hang on just a second. Should have it right here. Okay. So yes, qualifying bonus points in the standard is where we at? Well, I've lost that graphic somewhere. My apologies. Well, I've dropped the ball on that one, huh? Oh well. Let's see, that's the 1.5. I'm sorry, y'all. Bear with me. I had it and then I lost it. Okay, here we go. The quickest is 3, so you get 3 points and then 1 point. Sorry, y'all. So after the season is over and we go to the countdown of the championship, they're going to reseed the points. Again, the most points you can get at a standard event is 140 points. You win the race, you're number one qualifier, and you're the quickest in all 4 sessions. It's happened before. It's not, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened before. So you can get 140 max points in a standard NHRA national event. And again, once they get done and go to the countdown for the championship that starts at the U.S. Nationals, they're going to reseed. First place in points is going to go to 2,100, all the way down to 10th place in points. That is going to be 2,000. And here's where it gets fun. Because you go into the playoffs, the countdown. Now NHRA has 2 races within the countdown that is 1.5 point scale. Why do they do that? So here are the events that use the 1.5 point scale. We have the U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis, known as the Big Go, the longest and most prestigious running race in the NHRA calendar. It's held on Labor Day weekend, and it kicks off the countdown of the championship. And then the next race that has the 1.5 point scale would be the last race, the finals in Pomona, the In-N-Out Burger NHRA finals, held at the In-N-Out Burger Pomona Drag Strip in California. Final event of the season where generally some championships are decided. They might wrap them up a race or two, but it comes down to the first and the final race of the countdown has a different point scale, 1.5 times the points. And I'm going to get into that here in just a second. So why do these races get that treatment? Well, it's the bookends of the playoffs. If we're going to start, we're going to end it. Let's do it with a bang. All right. It's designed to increase drama by giving the drivers a bigger point swing. A single round win is 30 points in the 1.5, as opposed to the 20 points that we just talked about in the standard events. And qualifying matters even more because that graphic that I showed you earlier was actually the qualifying points for the 1.5. So that's my fault. My apologies. Let's see here. So here we go. 1.5. Qualifying points are not quite 1.5, right? If they were true 1.5 during the standard points, we would get 8, so it should be 12. But that's not the 1.5. The 1.5 is the round qualifying, but you do get more points in these races. So starting out with the number one qualifier, we'll get 10 points all the way down to 1 point for number 10. Remember, we went to number 8 before. Now we're paying out to number 10. So a little bit extra on the qualifier, 2 more spots going to get paid some points, but more premium points towards the top of the field. Round result, again, 30-point difference. If you show up and you're not fast enough to go home, they're still going to give you 15 points. So you're gonna at least get something for showing up. The first round runner-up, 30 points, 60, 90, 120, 150. So here we go. This is the qualifying bonus points per the 1.5 point set, 1.5 point scale per qualifying session. I had this on the last one. My apologies. I'm going to follow up with you guys next week and correct that, but we're going to look at this here. So the quickest, if you are the fastest in qualifying per session, you're going to get 4.5 points. So 4.5, 9, 18, right? You can get 18 possible points for qualifying if you're the fastest in all sessions. So let's look at the most points. Right, you win the race, you're going to get 50 points. You qualified on the pole, number one, you're going to get 10 points extra. But since you were the quickest in all 4 sessions, you're going to get an extra 18 points. So the maximum points you can get at a 1.5 event is 178 points, as opposed to the 150 that we could have got in the in the standard points. I'm sorry, 140 was our maximum points in the standard, 178 in the 1.5 points. So you can, I mean, that's, it's with 38 extra points. That's almost 2 round wins in a standard race, right? Because 20 points per round. So you're looking at almost 2 full round wins, more points when you start and in the playoffs. So, hey, if you're back 4 rounds and you go, 2 more rounds in each session, or I'm sorry, in the first and the last, you can make up some points pretty quick. So these are all premium. There's been a bunch of points battles that come down to the end, in the final rounds, which are always fun to see because you really get to see what the drivers are doing on the starting line. How are they gaming each other? I know a couple weeks ago we saw that final round between Gage Herrera and Matt Smith, right? Tricky Ricky Matt is Matt's dad. The dude's always good on the tree, but Gage bumped it in the light, and then not backed out, but rolled out one light and went back in. All that does is getting the other person off their game. They're looking at the tree, seeing some flashing. They're not going to necessarily, or might get their focus taken away from the tree, right, and possibly leave late. So there's always a lot of fun things. I love learning it. Big Mike, how's it going, bud? Hey, thank you for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it. But yeah, so we're learning about the points. Again, 2-point scales in NHRA. You have your standard points, which is 20 points per round, and then your 1.5 points, which is 30 points per round. You can make up a lot of ground. Now, here's something that I mentioned earlier. Roll out. What is rollout? Well, so rollout equals the distance over the vehicle launch velocity equals your reaction time, right? So what does that mean? That looks like quite the formula, right? So let's look at this. A standard top fuel funny car or top fuel front tire is a 22-inch tall tire. Standard funny car tire is a 24-inch. So 2 inches difference in tire gives you 0.05 inches more of rollout. And I don't have I tried to create a video on Canva. I couldn't really get some stuff done. I'm sorry, on Sora. I couldn't get it rendered right. But I mentioned earlier in my content, back in the 90s, we used to see this style of dragster. This is Joey Tomato, Joe Amato's Valvoline Top Fuel dragster. Look at the front tires on that car versus the front tires on Antron Brown's Matco Tools dragster. Quite the difference. So you might ask yourself, well, why would they want a bigger tire? What does the bigger tire do? Seems like it'd be a little bit heavier, right? Those look like almost go-kart tires. All right, so looking at this, looking at that, and then looking at that, we're going to keep it on this picture, right? So I cut some stuff. I'm a Picasso now. You have to bear with me. I don't necessarily cut good, but we got an old 90s tire. It's kind of lopsided. And we got a 2025 tire, right? And we're going to do just some little basic math. All right. your staging beams on a standard NHRA starting line are 7 inches apart, right? So the tire rolls in and breaks the pre-stage beam and then breaks the stage beam. Once that car leaves and that stage beam is back whole, completed, that is the reaction time of the car. So the lights come down, the car moves. As soon as that staging beam is made back whole, that's when that's where the reaction time is generated, and that's where your ET starts. So let's picture this for a second. If I'm here and I roll to here, and now that's my reaction time, and that's where my elapsed time starts. Now we're talking about 340 miles an hour down at the other end of the track. So any advantage or any head start you can get on a starting line is going to increase your mile an hour on the finish line, because essentially you're getting a rolling start at it, right? Because if I have a smaller tire and my beam breaks versus I have a bigger tire and I can roll this thing 2 more inches than this tire, now I've got a 2-inch head start towards the bottom, towards the big end, right? And I've already got motion going before my elapsed time ever starts. I get started rolling, and it doesn't sound like much. You're talking about that much difference. You wouldn't think that makes that much of a difference, but when we're starting from a stop all the way to the end of the track, any rolling start that you can get is going to make a big difference. Upwards of potentially 10 to 15 mile an hour. Now this is all depending on how people stage their car. I know when we talked to Caps a few weeks ago, he had mentioned that it's very important that the driver bumps it in the same every time, gets on the handbrake, gets on the throttle, lets go of the handbrake while he's getting onto the throttle, all at the same time, and it's very important. Well, what happens before all that is the driver has to stage the car, right? And the more consistent a driver can stage the car, the easier it is. Well, the easier it is for a crew chief to dial the car in, provided that they are racing in a sportsman type race. Now, these crew chiefs are going to dial these cars in based on the track conditions, but it is important for the driver to stage the car the same way every time. Shallow staging, again, it gives you a running head start towards the finish line. You might hear of something called a deep stage. That's where the driver goes in, gets the pre-stage and the stage beam, and then rolls out of the pre-stage beam, and those lights go out. So that's called a deep stage. And don't really see that much anymore. But that could give you all right, so we got 7 inches, right? So if we're just barely bumped into the stage beam, but our other guy is already bumped out of the pre-stage beam and is almost out of the stage beam, but not quite, he could have a 4-inch head start. And we're talking about races that end in 10,000ths of a second, difference. You think 4 or 5 inches ain't gonna make a huge difference at the start line? Enormous difference. Like I said, back in the 90s, man, they were going to these little tires. I'm not real sure what brought that on. I remember it very vividly, but I'm not sure why that they had those tires like that. I never could figure that out. But you don't see it anymore, and there's a reason for that. It's because, well, you can go faster and quicker with bigger tires. So again, rollout. It is called rollout. Once you enter the beam, the pre-stage, and you light the stage beam, how long it takes you to roll out of those beams is what's called the rollout. And that's where your reaction time and your elapsed time starts from. Again, a standard funny car has 0.05 inches more of rollout than a standard top fuel front tire. Now, so you would think, with that being said, The top fuel cars are faster, well, because they're way more aerodynamic. Hey, Drag Racing Mayhem, thanks for tuning in, bud. I appreciate it. I love talking drag racing. I was born into drag racing, but but the top fuel cars are faster. They got a smaller rollout, but they're also way more aerodynamic. They're not a brick trying to push it through the air, right? But let's see here. Where were we at? Okay, so yeah, so that's how far it takes you to get out of the beam, for that beam to close back and that light to go out, and that reaction time to start. That is called your rollout. Again, now for sportsman categories, not for top fuel, not for pro stock, not for funny car, for sportsman categories. And I'm going to use super gas for an example because that's what I grew up around. Super gas racing. My dad was a Division II champion in NHRA Super Gas. He's 5th in the world in NHRA. Multiple Division II champions, actually, multiple track champions up at our local track there in Jolton, Tennessee, at Union Hill Dragway. Shout out there. But those classes are very, very dependent on how you stage the car and how your car is going to run. If now these sportsman categories more often than not have what's called a throttle stop. If you listen to them, they'll leave the starting line in about a half a second or so, somewhere around in there. The throttle, the gas pedal will still be WFO, but there's a piece of equipment underneath the carburetor that closes the butterflies. The carburetor's still wide open, but the throttle stop underneath it is closed. And that time that it is closed is determined by what the driver or crew chief sets up his timers at. So the important thing about staging and rolling out in the sportsman categories is that 7 inches that I was talking about, the stage beam and the pre-stage beam are apart. You can really, really, really mess up your time in a sportsman category by staging the car wrong. These guys have to dial their car in, right? Super gas, you can run no faster on a quarter mile than at 9.9 seconds. So if you are set up to run a 9.9, usually not, but let's say you're set up to run dead on at a 990, and you roll that car in an extra 2 inches. You're going to go quicker because now you're closer. Your mile an hour might be a little bit better, but you're probably going to go quicker because you're a little bit closer to the starting line. But if you shallow stage it, you might, I'm sorry, be slower and then faster the other way. My bad. Had that backwards. Sorry. Too much talking today. Drag Racing Mayhem. I want to message you tomorrow. Yeah, dude. Hey, there's drag racing in itself is it's like I said last week. It's a team sport, but once you get onto the track, it's 1v1. It's not 1v42. It's not 1v all the other cars. It's 1v1 at that specific time in that specific moment. It's the drag racing is just it's unique in that it's the 1v1, but it's in my opinion probably the original form of racing, right? I doubt that somebody was racing around in circles the first time out and probably said, my car's faster than you, let's race down to that wherever, right? You're here. All right, well, you missed it. I'll go back over though, Dom. I'll go back over it. Not a problem. I don't mind. We can. My kids don't get home for another 10 minutes or so. We're going to hang out and we'll go right back over the points. I don't mind doing it at all. I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for stopping by. Right now we're going over rollout and I'll start over base. Right? What is rollout? If you're a mathematician, the taller the tire, the more time it takes to roll out of the beams. Used to back in the 90s, you'd see top fuel cars that look just like this. Very, very small front tire. Way like virtually no rollout. Once those things move, it's pretty much it. Nowadays, you see a front tire, much bigger front tire. What does that do? That lets them get a rolling start towards the finish line before they break those beams, and those beams go out. They're already going, right? Instead of just barely moving and having your lapse time start, you get a rolling start at it, which makes your lapse time and your mile an hour much quicker. So let's go back here to the points. Since Mr. Dom has stopped by here, we're going to honor his request to see how points are awarded. All right. Standard NHRA points. Now, this is pro categories only, okay? If you win the race, you're going to get 100 points, and it's a 20 points per round is what it's worth. If you don't qualify, if you show up and you don't even make the show, they're going to give you 10 points. If you're the first round runner-up, you're going to get 40 points, and then from there, it's 20 points each round. So if you lose in the quarterfinals, you're going to get 60 points because you got 20 points more than the first round, right? With that, qualifying bonus points, national events. Number 1 qualifier is going to get 8 points. Number 8 qualifier is going to get 1 point. They qualify 16 cars. We're not really worried about the bottom of the field. They can figure it out next week, right? So we're going to award the top 8 in qualifying at least some point. If you're 8th, you're going to get 1. If you're number 1, you're going to get 8. This graphic is wrong. I'm sorry. This is for the other point scale, the qualifying bonus points per round. These numbers are wrong. 3 should be the quickest. But if you look at the graphic, it'll make sense here in a second. Okay, so the maximum points you can score at an NHRA national event. If you win the race, you're going to get 120 points. If you qualify number 1, you're going to get 8 points, right? Now, here's the thing. In those qualifying points, I had the wrong up there. But let's say you're fastest in all 4 sessions. You set the low ET of all 4 sessions. Not necessarily low ET of the meet, but you're the lowest ET of all 4 sessions. You're going to get 12 extra points. That's 3 points per round. There's 4 qualifying sessions. So that's a maximum total of 140 points that a driver can walk away with on a weekend, on a standard weekend. If he qualifies number 1, bad fast in every single session, and mops the field, bam, he's going to get 140 points. They used to give points out for speed records and ET records. They don't do that anymore. You just get a lot of extra exposure. And in 2019, also, they took away the backup rule. Used to, if you set a speed record or an ET record, you had to back it up within 1% of that, with 1% of that speed. Now, if you set the ET record on the pass before and you go 1%, you got to back it up. So they don't give points for that anymore. But any national speed record prior to 2019 was basically ran twice. They had to back it up. Now they don't have to. They run it once and it counts. I kind of like that. I never really. I guess I understood the backup rule, just because this is what I grew up with and what I was used to. But now that I'm thinking about it, I don't understand why I liked it, because even if it is a fluke, if you get out there and run the number, you get out there and run the number. It should count. You shouldn't have to back it up. Let's see here. Drag Race Mayhem. NHRA has the participation in the playoffs, so sadly they basically mean nothing until the playoffs. Yes, I agree. I agree. All right, so now what's next, Dom? We got, hang on, 1.5 points. What do you mean 1.5 points? So at the beginning and the end of the playoffs. That's right. The beginning, the U.S. Nationals, Labor Day weekend, longest running and most prestigious race on the NHRA calendar, called the Big Go. They get 1.5 points. Also at the NHRA finals, they get 1.5 points. The bookends, if you will. You're going to open the playoffs with a bang, and you're going to close them with a bang. So let's take a look at that, shall we? All right. So 1.5 points. Qualifying. We're going to pay 10 spots now. 10th is going to get 1 point. First is going to get 10 points. It was 8-1. This is not exactly 1.5. I know if it was 1.5, first should be 12. But they pay out 10 spots instead of 8. Now, this is only for these 2 races, the U.S. Nationals and the finals. So here's your qualifying points. And then your round results. It's 30 points per round instead of 20. So a winner is going to get 150 points. Qualifying DNQ is going to get 15. First round runner-up is going to get 30, and then it'll be 30 from there. So 30, 60, 90, 120, 150. Pretty simple. Qualifying per session. Here we go. If you're the fastest per session, you're going to get 4.5 points. If you're the third, you're going to get 1.5. If you're the second, you're going to get 3 points. So what's the maximum amount of points that a driver can earn at a 1.5 event? Wins all 4 rounds, he's going to get 150. Qualifies number 1, he's going to get 10. Quickest in all 4 sessions, not necessarily the low ET of the meet in all 4 sessions, but the low ET of all 4 sessions, right? 18 points, 3 times 4, or 4 times 4.5, for a grand total of 178 points, as opposed to 140 that we had with the standard points. So the bookend races, the beginning and the end of the playoffs, you could potentially score 38 more points. So now let's say, and that now think of it. So if you can score 38 more points, that's nearly 2 rounds of racing in the standard point system, right? Because each round was worth 20 points. Well, in these other 2 races, you can make up 2 rounds just about, if you have a badass race. So it creates a little bit of extra drama. It's fun, but I hope that answered your question, Dom, and I hope I didn't confuse you too much. I know you said it's actually pretty easy. It kind of is, but there's just some different stuff going on, and there's always, it always seems like every lap they make, there's potential to get some points somehow, some way, right? And then now, penalty points. How do you get a penalty point, you say? Oil the track down. NHRA does not like for you to blow up and oil the track down. They don't like to have the safety safari out there having to clean up the track or waste time or have any downtime. So if you want to get in trouble, oil the track down. Sorry, y'all, got a call. So, all right. So here we go. If you cross the center line, you're going to get a 10-point penalty. If you hit a timing block, you're going to get a 10-point penalty. If you oil the track down, it could be 5 to 10 points, depending on the severity. And it says unauthorized staging burnouts. I'm not real sure what that is. But another failing a fuel check would be a 10-point or DQ, depending on the qualifying, depending on the impact. Now we also saw a 100-point penalty for Elite Motorsports the other day for their illegal rear wheels. So that is a monster. That is a monster penalty. There's nothing any remotely close to this that says you get a 100-point penalty. So, like I said, Eric Enders had a 100-point penalty for illegal wheels. Those are some of the penalty points you can get. But again, what we covered today: NHRA points and wheels, tires, and rollout. All right, let's go back over that real quick. Rollout. This is going to represent an old top fuel car tire, like what we just saw right there. And this one is going to represent this car. Okay. So here's the stage beam. We're going in the stage beam and we break it. All right, bam, the tree's on. Now the tree comes down and we roll out of that beam about right there. Now the beam's broke, our reaction time starts and our elapsed time starts. All right, we did this and we rolled out. We rolled out of the beam. Man, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. Now, let's do this big tire here. Let's get this big tire unit here, right? We roll into the beam, we break it. Now we have to roll out. Look how much farther that was. So this guy might break the beam quicker going out, but this guy is going this guy is going to get a big head start going to the finish line. Again, we're talking about 2 to 3 inches of a head start. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but you're talking about getting to a 1,000 foot. You're only going 1,000 foot, and you're going to be going 340 miles an hour between now and then. Damn, those 2 inches become very, very important. So the more head start you can get going towards the finish line, the better chance you have at getting a good time or fast speed, whatever it may be. But that's what rollout is. And here we put this simple rollout calculation. So delta the reaction time equals the inches of movement before breaking stage beam. Right. So rollout distance and the vehicle launch velocity. That's the rollout calculator for anybody that is a mathematician. But anyway, yeah. So the small wheels and tires crack you up. Hey, this is from 1993, I think. So that doesn't matter. Yes, it does. I think this is from 1993. Joe Amato, the Joey Tomato. But yeah, so those little bitty tires. I remember it was in Bristol in, I can't remember, 92, 93. There was a guy named Doug Foxworth. And Friday night, I think, or Saturday night, I can't remember. I think it was Saturday qualifying. He was in the right-hand lane, got down past the stripes. The car in the other lane next to him got kind of squirrely, and they wrecked. And they fixed the car. They fixed the car overnight. Come back, was making a blast out of the left lane and got almost all the way down the track. And this is where the story comes in play. But he had a blowover, and I remember it plain as day. It was a yellow car. And he had a white nose, or the blue nose, and like white fins on it. And he had those very small wheels. And I'll never forget. I was standing there in the staging lanes with my dad, and looking down the track, because at the time Bristol staging lanes was off to the side. You see down the track pretty good. And all I could see is that car just, and that was the wildest thing I've ever seen. But it always reminds me, these little bitty ass wheels look so funny up in the air with that car wrecking. But anyway, a little story that I remember. But that's going to wrap it up tonight. I hope everybody got a little bit of something out of it. I appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. But we're going to get going. I hear my children stepping in, so I got to get them to bed. My wife's out of town tonight, but I hope that we learned some stuff, and we are going to continue on with sportsman racing next week. I got a sportsman racer. I'm going to try to get a hold of. I talked to him last week. A guy named Sherman Adcock Jr. One of the best sportsman racers in the country. And I remember hearing my dad talk about him all the time growing up. Him and my dad raced a lot together. So going to try to get him on the show, and we're going to talk about reaction time, and we'll get a little bit more into staging the car. I know he's probably got his own way of doing things, and he's probably not going to divulge all of his secrets, but I'm going to try to get a little bit of strategy out of him. how he goes about attacking starting line based on who he's running, and based on his mental notes of who he's running and what they like to do. Man, there's so many races are won on the start, or won and lost on the starting line long before the tree ever comes down. And I remember back in the day, a staging game that my dad played with a guy. This guy always liked to go in. He liked to bump in and then roll in. And I remember that there's one night that this little cat and mouse. My dad got both lights real quick as he was getting his, and it completely threw him off his game. He had like a 5:30 reaction time, and I think Dad was like a 4:29. It was over at the starting line. But we're going to talk to Sherman here, and if not next week, it'll be the week after. And I got Erica Enders, got her coming up. Talked to Miss Sarah Slaughter today, her PR girl. I reached back out to her. They've had a rough couple weeks. I'm not going to hash out anything with her that came from Bristol. I really just want to talk to her about her career. So we got those people coming up, and a couple more on the line. So we're gonna get out of here tonight, and we'll see you next Monday. Probably be live next Monday, and then maybe an interview or two the following week. But thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. For Miss Taylor Kitchen and ATYL Media, this is Big Duke and Nitro Nation. You guys, thanks for tuning in. Keep digging.